As a strength and conditioning coach, you'll inevitably face situations in which you have to maintain or develop physical abilities in your athletes, often in less than ideal conditions. Lack of time, of energy, of equipment, or dedicated sessions can all be problematic. Today, I want to discuss how to use the overall training time to optimize strength and conditioning work when time and energy are scarce. In high-performance environments where athletes are already pushed close to their limits, as is often the case with professionals, time for strength and conditioning can be very limited. If your athletes are already carrying very heavy training loads, then adding some on top can end up being counterproductive or even worse, increase the risk of injury. Yet, it's not always easy to negotiate some extra time with the sport coaches to have some time to work with your athletes while they're still in good conditions. In these situations, the goal is to optimize the results with the resources you have. And one of the greatest resources available is the athlete's sport training time. Many professional strength and conditioning coaches agree that one of the best ways to develop sport-specific physical abilities like specific speed or agility is through the sport in itself. In other words, if athletes have the basic foundations required to train their sport safely and effectively, then training their sport with some specific cues like postures, timing, and so on can sometimes be more effective than a dedicated strength and conditioning development cycle. Let's take an example. Imagine you're working with a group of ambitious youth basketball players and they already train a lot. When evaluating their training load, you realize that their S&C plus sport-specific training is already extremely high and that adding more training volume would do more harm than good. The problem is you still see a major weakness, their plyometric ability. They don't know how to jump, their body are not ready for a full plyometric program, and you can't find any space to put it in the schedule anyway. What should you do? First, identify the real problems, here the lack of time and energy. Then develop those problems. Both time and energy problem come from the same thing, the packed schedule. From there, you know you need to use a method that won't take much time and won't add much fatigue. A prevention and learning phase ticks both boxes. If properly programmed, it can be fit into shorter sessions and does not add much fatigue. After a few weeks, your athletes will jump with better technique and have stronger, more resilient structures, making them safer under higher loads. At this point, what you will lack is the volume, the number of jumps that you need to repeat in order to properly build a plyometric ability. But while you don't have that time, their sport coach does. If they spend 2 hours a day on the court playing basketball, they're already running and jumping extensively. That is a massive amount of plyometric exposure. If you've prepared them technically and structurally, then you can leverage your basketball training session as their true development phase for their plyometrics. In other words, use your interventions to set up the foundations and then let the training provide the volume. Is this as efficient as running a full plyometric cycle? No, but as a strength and conditioning coach, sometimes you just won't have the perfect condition to use a perfect training program. High-level sport is unpredictable and constantly shifting. Your best asset and skill will always be adaptability. And the approach I just described is a practical way to adapt and still drive meaningful results. Never forget, on the court or on the pitch, you'll always face overlapping demands, so learning to integrate and layer different methods is not just useful, it's essential for long-term performance as a strength and conditioning coach. I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions, suggestions, or anything else, feel free to drop a comment down below. And if you want to contact me straight through my social medias, the links are in the description. I'll see you next Sunday, and until then, train hard, stay consistent, and never forget, make yourself proud.